There we go. Hello.
We all
Hello, welcome. If you're joining us live or watching on replay, this is the second of the lives from Thread HR and Catalyst Careers. And today's topic is hiring headaches and recruiting in 2024. So I will let Amanda and Pam introduce themselves, and then we will have a whistle-stop tour of what we're going to cover, because there is quite a lot, and then we will come back to it. So Amanda, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda and I'm the proud owner of Thread HR, and our strapline is holding businesses together and making them stronger.
Love it. And Pam?
I was going to say that's an intro to follow, isn't it? So I'm Pamela Langan. Yeah, pressure. So I'm Pamela Langan and I am co-founder with Jackie of Catalyst Careers, and we offer outplacement support and recruitment support and a whole range of career and team development support as well. So I'm sure I'm just like thinking now there's probably stuff that I've missed out, but I'll let Jackie fill in any gaps if there is.
Well, just a podcast. So yeah, I'm Jackie Jagger. I'm co-founder with Pam of Catalyst Careers, and Catalyst Careers actually came about because we've been collaborating on projects, including our podcast, Career and Leadership Real Talk, which covers a lot of the areas that our services cover. So leadership development, careers development, job search, all of that kind of stuff. You'll find more of us on our podcast. So let's head straight into it then, given how much ground we've got to cover. If you are watching, then give us a hello and feel free in the comments to just drop a message. Let us know if you've got any questions, because we have got some time scheduled a bit later on to come back to anything from that as well. So first off then, the jobs market at the moment. So Amanda, coming to you first, you work with numerous different businesses, and you see recruitment from kind of a number of different industries and what have you. What are employers seeing, in your experience, in the recruitment market in 2024?
Yeah, it's definitely harder. I think would be the overarching thing. It's definitely harder. And I think we all noticed a big shift coming out the other side of the pandemic as well. You know, during the pandemic, people reflected a lot on what they wanted to be doing, and business models changed, right? So both of those things have made hiring a lot more difficult. And then add into that the rules on skilled worker visas changing, and, you know, businesses having costs if they want to apply for licenses to sponsor visas and so on. It's quite tricky out there. It's probably my summary for companies.
And what do you think are the kind of particular challenges for most employers? Like what are most employers? Is it finding candidates? Is it finding candidates with the right experience? Is it expectations around pay? What's making it so tricky?
A lovely mix of all of those. So we're all probably aware national minimum wage went up recently, as it does at the start of every April, and it was quite a big jump this year. So if you're in an industry that employs people at those entry-level positions, that was quite a big step up in your labour costs. But also the cost of living is really pressing on everyone at the moment. So salary expectations are higher, and they can be higher because there's also a lack of quality people in lots of key areas, because, like I said, people have changed job roles, people are working differently, and that adjustment between supply and demand in the market is making it hard. Another thing is the speed. If you're a candidate, it's really easy to look for jobs, and as a company, you need to be set up really well to be able to spot quality candidates quickly and be able to get them into the process quickly. If you can't do that, that good quality candidate is gone and on to the next one. And this could be a big challenge, particularly in smaller companies where they might not have someone specifically assigned to monitoring your recruitment system or your inbox every day for applicants.
And I think a lot of employers as well have tried to reduce their reliance, because of cost, on external recruiters, haven't they? So they're trying to do recruitment for themselves more so than perhaps they have in the past, and finding that maybe recruiters perhaps were offering quite a valuable service that they're finding it harder to replicate.
Yes, I would think that's fair. I think when you look at sort of agency fees that can be sort of circa 20% of salary, for example, initially that big hit on the P&L can feel, but when you think about, all the people, the networking that agency has done to get to know people in a specific industry and specific job roles, getting to know the company as well, that is a real skill. And there probably needs to be a bit of balancing out between agencies and companies to help make that relationship work a little bit better, I think.
Yeah. And Pam, so must be happy days then for candidates. If employers are finding it challenging for all these reasons, easy for candidates, or maybe not.
I think, yeah, it's a real mixed place, the job market at the moment, isn't it? It's like it's evolving. It is moving. We are seeing lots of new roles come up. We're seeing employers looking for talented candidates, but at the same time, there's still a lot of competition for candidates. Candidates are still needing to position themselves properly in the job market to make sure that they've shown the value that they bring and that they are then being invited for interviews. And I think what we've seen since the pandemic really is that certain sectors like technology and healthcare and e-com, they're experiencing rapid growth right now, and they are looking for talented candidates, and there seems to be a real shortage in those areas. And then in other areas where there seems to be lots of candidates and less job roles, I think it's time for people to really start thinking about, rather than just sidestepping into roles, it's thinking about what is the future, what does the future look like, and starting to think about their skill set and how they can navigate the changes in a way that is going to work for their career as well, because there's so many opportunities to move into the likes of tech and e-com, and you don't always need to have that exact skill set. There are different ways that you can move into those sectors, but right now I feel people are in panic mode. There's a lot more redundancies happening, so people are just looking at like for like roles and just trying to get back on the payroll, rather than thinking, what does the future look like and how can I future-proof my career? I think that's a real key one right now. And obviously employers can benefit from people looking to future-proof their career, upskilling and moving it across to different industries and bringing all of the amazing transferable skills that they've got into those different industries and sectors.
And I think as well, one of the things that we've seen is that there is a kind of a negativity from people who've applied for quite a few jobs. We're very vocal about how hard they're finding it as a candidate. And so there can then very quickly become this assumption that it is hard as a candidate. Whereas in reality, part of the reason that they're struggling can be because their CV isn't doing a good enough job of showcasing what they can bring to an employer. And having kind of seen both sides and worked kind of with employers on the recruiting side and worked with candidates on that kind of positioning side, particularly during outplacement, I've definitely seen that kind of mismatch. If you speak to someone who is a great candidate and you look at the CV and how they're positioning themselves, and then you think, God, when I've been recruiting as an employer, how often have I been turning down people who could have been great candidates but just didn't have that skill set to position themselves. So what is it that candidates are, especially the kind of the real talented candidates then, Pam, what are they looking for in the current job market? What do they place value on? What do they want from an employer?
So I think at the moment, the key thing is, especially after the pandemic, people are really thinking about that work-life balance and thinking about how can they be really successful in their career, but also have that time and space to have a life outside of work as well. So they're not taking all of that stress home with them, and having that real kind of flexible approach that allows them to work when it's best for them. I think what we've seen a lot, especially with the clients that we've worked with, is that where there's that flexibility, there's increased productivity, because when people can be in control of their workloads and when they do that work, it really does make a difference. So employers will be getting more from people from having that flexible approach than they will if it's a rigid 9 to 5, because not everybody fits into that category. So lots more candidates are looking for those flexible working arrangements where they can work when it's best for them, obviously in line with, you know, meetings and different things that, you know, the company will have in as mandatory requirements, but just being able to have that flex to be able to work from the office, from home, from a coffee shop, you know, wherever, you know, whatever environment is right for them on that particular day, and having that flexibility to make that decision and run with it. I think that is what a lot of people are looking for, you know, that almost that, and the flexibility as well to work from home if they need to, especially the people who've got children. You know, if a child's sick, you don't want to have to be calling in sick yourself to the office. If you've got the flexibility to work from home, you can carry on your day, still, you know, making sure that your child's okay and all the rest of it. And I think that's that level of flexibility also creates loyalty as well.
And I think it's not just flexibility in terms of the kind of location and environment. It's also things like, you know, any form of flexibility that employers are able to offer can really have an impact in terms of attracting candidates. So if you're able to make a role part-time rather than full-time, if you're able to flex the working hours, there's lots of different ways. And I think sometimes employers perhaps get stuck, don't they, Amanda, in that headset of like, we've put hybrid, that's it, that's our flex, that's how we flex.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big thing that underpins all of these conversations is how people approach trust in the workplace. And that's often the barrier that's stopping people from being empowered to manage their own diaries. With some of my clients, we've put in core hours, for example. So you must be available to the business between these hours. But outside of that, get the job done when you need to get it done. And things like that can really help as long as you feel confident and are able for your managers to trust those people to do that. And I guess that leads back to our old friend, making sure managers are trained properly as well and how to go about doing that. They all tie together, right?
Yeah. And I think one point that I think is really interesting to ask both of you on the different sides is around salary transparency. Because I know when I've done a project with a client, we've shifted from not having salary transparency with ads to then putting it in, the difference was pretty significant. You're nodding, Amanda. I take it you've had a similar.
It drives me mad when I come across companies that don't put salaries on an advert. As a candidate, I can't imagine that you're going to waste your time applying for a job when you don't even know if it's in the right ballpark for meeting your needs, let alone whether it's an enhancement on what you've got currently. And obviously where people are nervous is exposing to all the existing employees what you're paying someone. And it's, you know, there's work to do behind the scenes, but that's absolutely workable, and it will pay so much in dividends if you then get to a point where you can say what your salaries are on your adverts. You know, using pay bandings and putting in real objectivity around how you move through those and what that means will benefit all of your employees and probably stop them looking elsewhere because they're going to trust in you that you're paying them a fair wage.
Yeah. And Pam, do you see that from a candidate perspective? Do you see that candidates are less willing to apply for those roles if they haven't included a salary?
Yeah, I think I see that a lot. And also I see that people are less reluctant to tailor the CV and take the time to really put an effort in on that application because they're not quite sure. So sometimes they'll just look at it and think it's a wild card, or go for it, or get the conversation going. And I think one of the key things that I've noticed lately with my clients is that, you know, employers are not as available as they used to be. So if candidates are trying to get information about the role, there's so many barriers in the way at the moment. And it used to be that you could give a company a call and get some more information from maybe HR or, you know, even direct from the hiring manager. But candidates seem to be hitting more brick walls and getting that information. So then by the time they've gone all around the houses to find out, you know, will they pay me the salary that I'm looking for, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to think, I'm not going to waste my time. They'll have a little try, and then they might just send in a CV. And then on the other side of that, you're the employer receiving the CV that isn't really tailored because somebody hasn't really put the effort in to do that. And then you might discount that person because they haven't brought to the front, exactly what they can do and deliver. And I think what you've got to also take into account is that you're asking people to create a CV, but not everybody is a professional CV writer or has done that, recently, or has a skill in doing that. So it's almost like, the more specific you can be with that information, it will allow people the time and the space to make a decision and to then tailor their application accordingly, which then should help you, the employer, to make a better decision.
Yeah. Absolutely. So moving on then to what's become quite a hot topic generally, which is AI and kind of how that feeds in with recruitment. So Amanda, you work mostly, don't you, with kind of smaller and mid-sized companies because you provide that kind of outsourced HR function that perhaps bigger companies would have the in-house resource. So have you seen employers adopting AI, or is that potentially an opportunity that they can still tap into?
No, I haven't seen it. And actually, one of my clients has even written a book on AI and how to use it, but he's not brought up conversations about how we should be using it within the HR function and recruitment, which is quite interesting. It's certainly an area that I'm intrigued to get into more, but, it needs to be two ways. I need the clients to be interested in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pam, how about, so from a candidate perspective, are candidates feeling the experience of AI happening and being a part of recruitment processes? What are they seeing?
I think candidates are really feeling that, I want to say, like, maybe the wrath of AI at the moment, because it does take that human element out of recruitment. But there are ways around that, and there are ways to add that human element back in and to really streamline the process. And I think the employers that we work with want to make the processes more efficient. They want to streamline those processes. They want to give the candidates the best possible experience, but it doesn't always work out that way. And when you use an AI, it is a case of trial and error. It's about testing it, and it's about getting the feedback from the candidates. And especially if you just jump straight into it, there's so many different parts to it that you do really need to think about the candidate experience at every point. Because I think at the moment, candidates know when, they're just getting those, instant rejections, that must be a robot, because there's absolutely no chance somebody has read my CV that fast. And even down to the selection process and all of the different parts of the recruitment process where companies are now using AI, it's really clear to the candidates. Like, there was a candidate last week who was doing first stage interview. It was a video interview. There was absolutely no contact with a human. And then it was a video interview, and it was obviously like an AI bot read out the question. They gave the answer. At the end of the interview, it was like, I don't really know anything about the company. So it was really one-sided. So it was very much like, I've just given you all of the information that you've asked for, but you haven't given me anything back. And that they then started to question, like, is this a company that I want to work for? Because why aren't they at least giving me a phone call and saying, this is how it's all going to work and this is what we're going to do? It was all very automated, email, video. And it was like, well, they haven't got time to speak to me in that initial process. They just want all of the information from me. But at what point do I get the information from them? And the interview process has got to be two-sided. It can't just be the candidate giving everything. Like, the candidate needs enough information to also make that decision as well.
I feel like this is a real shift in kind of candidate demand over the years. I feel like maybe even as recently as kind of, 5 or 6 years ago, employers probably could have those processes where it's kind of like, we've got a job, we're the one with the power, that we've got a job that we're going to offer to somebody, and you've all got to kind of dance to our tune to be the lucky one to get it. And I feel like generally in recruitment, that is not working anymore, but especially if you want really talented candidates. If you want to be able to pick the cream of the crop, then there's a real danger that if you depersonalize that experience in a pursuit of kind of automation and using AI, then actually there's a real risk factor. Amanda, you're kind of...
Yeah, it's absolutely what you said, Jackie. It's really talented, but also it's more important than ever that people understand whether the company is going to be a good fit for them. The companies need to realize this as well, like that you need that fit for that long-term relationship with each other. I think there's less of a stigma around shorter stints on a CV than there used to be, and people just won't put up with it if they go and work for a company that's a load of bobbins. And if you don't give a candidate the opportunity to ask those really important questions about the reality of what it is like to work there, you're not helping yourself. You're really not helping yourself.
Can I just high five you for the comment, load of bobbins?
Bobbins. I'm very BBC.
Yeah, and I know we've seen when we're supporting people who are on a job search following kind of outplacement or because they're looking for that next move in their career, there's some real crass obvious use of automation that I think again is, so things like using AI to write the job ad. I think you can often spot a mile off when an ad is written by ChatGPT. It hasn't been sense checked, it doesn't hang together. And savvy, talented candidates are going to sniff that a mile off. They are not going to be taken in. And again, it comes back to then it doesn't reflect your employer brand. And for anyone who's watching, we've done a previous live exactly on the topic of employer brand and why it's so important. So, if you want to go back to that one and watch the replay, you're very welcome. But I think when it comes to recruitment, a lot of it feels to me a lot of what's driven the use of AI in recruitment processes is this drive for kind of efficiency and cost saving, but also then the AI is sometimes in the hands of people who perhaps don't have the experience or the understanding around that broader employer brand strategy. And so you can see kind of mismatches between how a company wants to be perceived and how candidates might perceive them as a result. Does that feel a fair reflection?
Because it can only pull on what's already out in the ether, can't it? So AI is pulling on a load of other very average job adverts that have already been written. It needs someone that really understands the company to add what is essentially a bit of a marketing twist to it. Because like you said, it's employer brand, it's how you're presenting yourself, and it's standing out in a market that's fairly busy with job adverts. There's a few out there. So yeah, it needs that specialism from an agency or from specialists in-house or outsourced.
Yeah, I definitely feel there's going to be another live on job ads specifically, because I feel like all of us have got a real passion around the importance and job ads and also job descriptions, because I think similar is that candidates that are going into a process are sometimes finding that the actual job description has also been put through an AI model, and again it just reads as so standardized, and there's words that you'll see where somebody's clearly taken a job description from a competitor or from elsewhere that they found and kind of put it through, and the language is a dead giveaway, isn't it, Pam? We have a little bingo of all the words.
Yeah, we love spearheaded, bolstered, fostered, robust. What are some of the others? I mean, there's tons of them, isn't there? I mean, the list is growing, and it's becoming more and more difficult, because what we're seeing a lot of is companies using AI to write their job descriptions, and then candidates using AI to write their CVs based on the AI generated job descriptions. And what you're just getting is something that's so far away from reality that it's just making things more difficult. So if you used AI in a way that really supports the process and doesn't take away from that human element, but also ensures that it's completely efficient and streamlined, and you've got a real clear process from start to finish, and the candidate experience is perfect throughout, and you've thought about who's going to be involved from an internal perspective. You can make that process so much more smoother, efficient, bring in, the best candidates for the role, attract the best candidates to the role, and save time as well. It doesn't have to be a huge process or a massive effort. It's just about putting those things in place to make sure everything flows. And I think once you've got that, you can just rinse and repeat that and keep moving forwards with it. But at the moment, I feel like employers and candidates alike are making the process so much harder using AI. It's almost like using AI with a blindfold on, because you kind of like, you want to use it because you think it's great, and then you put in some stuff and you get something that you think, wow, that makes us sound great, but does it really sound like you? And that's both sides of the coin, isn't it? Does it sound like you as the employer? Does it sound like you as the candidate? And I think some of the people that we've worked with recently, what we're saying to them is, look at the job description, look at the job ad, but then go and look at the company and see what they're all about, and ask yourself, what do they really need to see from a person in this position? And almost overlooking that job description because you can clearly see it's AI generated, and asking yourself, actually, in reality, how can I add value? What will show them that I can hit the ground running or be great value for money, rather than going through an AI generated job description and ticking off and copying bits onto your CV, or then using AI to rewrite, sections of your CV. It can just be so much smoother and easier, and you can use AI to help. It's almost like greasing the wheels, isn't it? Rather than being a full solution.
Nice. And authenticity on both sides. Again, I think another trend is people want so much more than just a company to work for. They want a company where they can be themselves at, and equally, for companies to succeed, they need to project themselves as what they really are. And I think that's what you've identified there, Pamela, with what you've just described.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to move us on because of time, but yeah, I definitely feel like the job ads side could be alive in its own right. So I'm sure it will be at some point. If anybody is watching, if you've got any questions for us, then do pop them in as a comment and we will come to them shortly. But Amanda, I want to come to you on the topic of diversity and inclusion, and looking at how companies can kind of really use that as not just to tick a box or to say, yes, we're more diverse, we're more inclusive, but to really look at how can companies that do it well use that as leverage for making it easier to recruit talented candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jackie. This is such a biggie, and this isn't something that's limited to small companies. I think big companies are just as much at fault for not considering this in how they go about recruiting. And a big one for me with DEI is around everyone who's involved in the process being aware right from the off that we've all got unconscious biases that are the result of how we've been brought up, where we've been brought up, what our experiences have been. And that affects how we assess situations and individuals and so on and so forth. So a big thing for all businesses to consider as they approach recruitment is how they can remove unconscious bias, and you do this by putting objectivity into your process. Now, a real classic of mine is that I'll work with a client, often founder-led, but not always, and they just interview the way they've always interviewed, and that is just not good enough. So a lot of work is around putting in actual interview questions so everyone gets a fair crack of the whip in terms of what they're actually being assessed on, scoring metrics. What does good look like in response to this question? Not, oh, this person's great because they went to the same university as me, or they support the same football team as me, which unfortunately is a bias that is wired into all of us. And it's even things like if someone's good looking, unfortunately, that is a bias that is baked into us. So objectivity is a big thing. And then I also really work with clients, think about where they get their advert in front of different people. Now, Indeed are obviously the behemoth of recruitment boards. They're enormous, huge TV advertising spend and so on and so forth. But there are loads of job boards that are dedicated and committing to getting quality jobs in front of different groups of people. And this might be people that want to work part-time, might be the BAME communities, might be people that have got learning challenges, a whole range of things. And if you really think about how you can get your advert in front of people, you're going to get a broader spectrum of people coming to you. Those people give you a better choice, but they're also far more likely to represent your workforce and your customer, making your business a better business all round. So there's loads to go out here, loads.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it, for the first step is kind of acknowledging that there's a good sound business reason to want to be more diverse and more inclusive. Because once you recognize that there is a commercial gain to be had, then you're going to look for those solutions. If you feel like you're just doing it because, I'm being forced to do it, then that isn't going to translate, and it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I read some stats not so long ago, which was around, if you publicly state in your ad openness to flexible working, and particularly part-time, that increased diversity of the candidate pool in terms of both gender and age. And I think gender, people would naturally recognise that you'll probably increase the chances of women, because there is more often women that work part-time. But actually, from an age perspective, what was really interesting was it was saying you see more younger candidates and older candidates. And actually, for younger candidates, potentially, they might want something that's part-time, or it might be that they are working alongside a business. It could be that there's a reason why they don't necessarily need full-time. Equally, at the older end of the age range, you can have people who perhaps have got caring responsibilities, people who are wanting to reduce their working hours and go into retirement, but still want a job that is actually going to kind of challenge them and stimulate them intellectually. So yeah, I think just really simple things can be quite high impact, can't they, on that side?
Yeah, massively.
And Pam, how about from a candidate perspective then? What would you say around the candidate side of what are people's perceptions? What are some of the stories that you see or hear around this?
I think what candidates want to see is that there is more diversity and inclusion. Like, they want to see that, regardless of of what is going on outside of the company, that when they're there, that they can go in, they can be comfortable in that workplace, and they can get a really good feel for how it works. And also things like where you say there about opening it up to flexible or part-time working, like there's people out there that want flexible and part-time roles that have not necessarily got children as well. People have got different things going on in their lives, and sometimes people are in a position where they can afford the luxury to be able to work part-time and not be somebody that's got children as well. So I think candidates are just looking for companies that are basically going to tick more of their boxes, that are going to allow them to go in, to be themselves, to cater for them in different ways, and also provides that level of flexibility, which I think is super important. Because I think if the pandemic taught us something about life, is that life is short, and the old thing now of you must have a joined up CV, you must work every hour that is available, all of that kind of stuff. It's like that's in the past now, and people are realizing that life is for living, and not just about your career. Your career is part of it, but it's not the be all and end all. And I think the more companies that start to also adopt that approach will get more from those people. They'll get more work, they'll get more loyalty, and create nicer places to work as well. And it's a win-win. And I think candidates need to see that right now, because what people are really afraid of is going back to back to that kind of the restriction of the 9 to 5 in the office. I think people want to see more now.
And I think just picking up on one of the things you said is that point that it's not just if you want to personally kind of feel included or feel that the option is open to you for more flex or part-time, your perception of the employer, even if you don't personally need that, your perception of the employer is different as a consequence of somebody kind of consciously making the effort to be more diverse and more inclusive. And I think one point as well that I want to add on this is I saw something just recently that was an employer that was obviously wanting to do this, but actually it hadn't quite worked out perhaps in the way they'd intended, because it was a candidate who was saying, I'm being asked to answer all these questions. And instantly I knew that the employer was asking about kind of intergenerational social mobility. So they were being asked about, did their parents have a degree? But that candidate didn't realise that the employer would anonymise that data. It wasn't available to hiring managers, and it wasn't part of the selection criteria. It was purely, so an employer there that was looking to do a good job by the sounds of it, of, wanting to measure that data and improve, but actually in their communication with candidates wasn't hitting the mark and was harming rather than helping the trust.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, it's so I think it just really pinpoints, doesn't it, the importance of it's not just what you do, it's how what you do is perceived by the other side for both employers and for candidates.
Yeah. So
just briefly then to our final point, which is around skills-based recruitment versus experience-based. So I can see you chomping at the bit, Amanda. So talk us through what you're seeing from an employer side in terms of, are people recruiting on the basis of skills or experience, a mix? What should they be doing if they want to improve their recruitment?
Yeah, I'm still seeing, and it's something I work with a lot of my clients on quite closely, just excitement on a CV if they see the name of a competitor. Just excitement. Oh, this person is going to be ace because they've worked over there, and we're always looking over there and want to be over there. But just because you've worked somewhere doesn't mean that you've picked up any good skills, that you've achieved anything in that time. You might have just sort of coasted through that role. So something that I try and get them to think about and that we put into the recruitment documents is about looking at having questions, that ask, tell me about a time that you have demonstrably grown customer satisfaction, for example. Tell me about a time that you've improved the profit margin, for example. So you're looking for experiences, like you said, and skills as to how people have done something to try and get over this excitement of where someone has worked. The other thing that I'm always keen to look at as well is putting questions into interviews that are around getting out the values that someone holds, and whether those align with the business as well. Again, because like I talked about earlier, I think that alignment is so important for long-term success together. If fundamentally you have a different take on things, or things are, different things are at varying levels of importance to you, I think that can be a bit of a long-term challenge as well. So yeah, specific examples of experience, not excitement, and then looking at values as well.
Perfect. And Pam, how about from your experience, what is it that really matters if employers want to get the best possible candidate? Should they be looking for broader skills or more specific experience matches?
So I think what they need to be looking at is the skill set, and that is what I always advise candidates to make sure that they highlight the skills. And it's almost like when we're doing the initial sift, if we're working with employers on their recruitment process, I tend to not look at the companies that they've worked for before. From the candidate perspective, I look at what skills and experience like is visible. You know, where can I see what value this person can bring? And it's always like based on the skill set. And then I'll go, right, okay, so this person looks like they've got the right skills. Where have they worked? Have they worked for similar businesses? And, you know, where else have they worked? You know, what are the transferable things within that CV? So I think it is really key to be looking at the skill set, because that's where you're going to get the value for money. If you're looking at it from an employer perspective, from a recruitment perspective, you want value for money from that person. You know, you don't just want somebody that's worked for a similar business to just rock up and be like, well, you know, I've worked for a similar business, but where was the value that you added? How are we getting a return on investment from you? So I think if you're looking at skills-based versus experience-based, skills-based is always going to be value for money for me anyway.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the challenges for employers is that assessment process, isn't it, Amanda? Of how do you know, like the experience is quite straightforward. Like you say, you can get excited and see, oh, they work there. But the skills piece, it can be trickier within the recruitment process to really identify what skills do we need this person to be able to demonstrate, and B, how do we assess them?
Yeah. I think obviously we talked a bit about job descriptions already. That's a good place to start in terms of what skills we're looking for. But also there's always context around this. So for example, so my background's in operations, like you, Jackie, used to be an area manager. If you were taking over some areas, you know, you would be told in advance that it was in real trouble. You needed to absolutely fix everything. But other areas were fine. They were performing. So actually the context that businesses are hiring for, even though it's the same role, requires a different set of skills. So I think that's really important to take into consideration. And alongside that, job titles also mean different things in different businesses. You know, I'm MD of Thread HR, but that's very different to being MD of British Airways, for example. So don't just go on job titles either. The context is important there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pam, any kind of final thoughts on that one from you?
I think the key thing is when you start that recruitment process, it is really about asking yourself, what do we need this person to deliver? So before you even get into writing your job description and your job ad, it's like, what do we need this person to deliver, and how do we need them to add value in our business? And if you start at that point, then that's where all of the skills that you need and the competencies that you need the person to demonstrate will start coming out at that point. And then you can use that as the basis for the writing of the documents and the interview, and, you know, coming up with interview questions and all of that kind of stuff. So I think if you start there, you will have a much smoother process and you'll have a real strong foundation to build on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one of the most common things that I know is a bit of a bugbear for us is when hiring managers will ask, like, oh, what exercise can I do in this second interview? You know, I need to put together a second interview exercise for such and such a role. What can I do? And our question is always that of, what do you need the person to be able to do in the role? Because then we can make those suggestions and we can support you with finding it. But if you don't know that, then you can be pulling ideas for what you're going to include. And, you know, the same with interview questions, you can just kind of go to a standard bank. Perfect. Well, we've come towards the end. So before we finish, Amanda and Pam, if I just ask each of you to just share a little bit about kind of the opportunities, if somebody's watching this and maybe needs some support, what are the ways that they can help and how can they get in touch?
Yeah. Sorry, Pamela, do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Sorry, in my head, I was looking at you, Amanda. Obviously, on the screen that doesn't translate. I do need to actually be explicit.
No worries. So I run Thread HR, and our specialism is supporting small to medium-sized businesses, and mostly that's businesses that are on a bit of a growth curve, and they get to a point where they start to need HR. And we can do this in a couple of ways. We We love being retained. We love getting to know our clients over an extended period of time. We can do one-off projects. And if you head over to our website, threadhr.co.uk, you'll also see if you're a business and say, for example, an employee comes to you and says, I'm pregnant, and you go, what do I do? We're now offering bronze, silver and gold levels of ways that we can support you in a way that suits you best as well. So catch me on LinkedIn, Amanda Henderson and Thread HR, and hope to speak with you soon.
Perfect. And Pam?
Amazing. So I suppose from a Catalyst Careers perspective, so me and Jackie work together. We did say at the start, we co-founded Catalyst Careers on the back of the podcast that we set up. So if you've not listened to the podcast, you definitely should check out Career and Leadership Real Talk. And we've heard quite a few from quite a few people recently that they are also sharing it with their teams to help with the team development too. So Catalyst Careers is a full career solution basically. So we provide everything from outplacement support to recruitment support. We run a program called Recruit Right, where we work directly with employers and support with the recruitment process. We've got a few different levels within that. We can be super hands-on, or we can just act as consultants within that. And we also do a lot of career and team development, or we provide career and team development support in the form of workshops, coaching, one-to-one. We've been working with lots of employers recently on the outplacement side, haven't we? Unfortunately, companies are making lots of redundancies at the moment. So we've been supporting quite a few companies on that side of things, but we are always open for a chat and can give you some advice on, what you might need, or if you can tell us what you're thinking of or what you've got coming up, we can help you come up with, exactly the solution that would work for you.
Perfect. Thank you both, and we will see you next month. So we haven't set our topic as yet for next month. So anybody that's watching, if there's a topic that you think would be particularly helpful for you, then feel free to message one of us, and we will see you back on, I can't remember the date, but it's towards the end of May, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.